All right, it has finally happened. We have finally reached the very end of this 5-season arc that is The Boys. And I think now is the right time for me to sit down and talk about what I thought of this very interesting last season. Now, obviously, I'm going to tell you what I think are the great things and the not so great things, but let's start off with the great things. Obviously, the entire cast this final season was absolutely amazing. I mean, I could list all of them off, but I feel like it's only justice if I can put all of them on screen right here. Okay? You can barely see everybody. I feel like I have to move back a little bit more just so you guys can see. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people that I feel like, this past, 5 seasons have been a part of this show. Obviously, there are people here that have been in previous seasons, people who passed on, way before everything. But I feel like the entirety of the Boys cast is absolutely breathtaking, including the people who kind of survived the season and also the people who didn't survive the season all that much, because honestly, there were a lot of, not so pretty deaths this season. So I think that every single person who you see on screen right now is absolutely amazing at their roles. I feel like it would be a disservice. It would take me 3 to 4 hours on this video to just sit back and talk about every single one of these actors and how incredibly hardworking they were to bring about a show that it talks about, social commentary, talks about, moments in our time as of right now that we are going through. And, season 5 has been extremely accurate when it comes to, the whole politicalization of things. So I feel like this show did an incredible job bringing all these people who have been nothing short of absolute magic to a project that is going to be forever remembered. And I think that in true The Boys fashion, we get an action-packed season. Every episode has, a shocking element to it. It could be midway through an episode, it could be towards the end of an episode, but there are shocking elements throughout each individual episode this season that just makes you go like, ooh, oh, I did not expect that to happen, or oh my god, that happened and I didn't expect that to happen. And typically it's a shock factor that they play into as well. So this season of The Boys was absolutely incredible in working through shock value and shocking people with specific moments that you would not expect, and that's something that I gotta give him props for, because otherwise it would be like maybe 1 or 2 shocking things happen throughout the show, but I feel like every single episode was solid in that matter. And I also have to give it up for length. The length of each individual episode this season was at an hour or a little over an hour. So we're talking about give or take a minute or 2. That was a great choice. I feel like if you're going to tell the final season of a show, tell, the story from beginning to end, having longer episodes helps out your story. And ultimately, for people who watched the show week to week, I feel like week to week, I prefer to absorb an hour's worth of a show rather than sit back and just watch 30 minutes of the show. I feel like it would be a disservice for me to actually sit back and watch a 30-minute episode of The Boys, being that The Boys can offer so much more, and they do offer more in the season, and I just gotta say even bigger props for that alone. And there are definitely deaths that we see in this movie, going back to like, what we were talking about, the action, but there are some deaths this season that kind of the show itself started to set us up for. Obviously this season we get a whole lot more of Frenchie. Frenchie, talks a lot more. He gets a little bit more screen time. So you expected him to get a little bit, at the end, ultimately his demise happening. And ultimately it does happen, and it's an emotional moment. Obviously I got super emotional because he's such a loving character, and he absolutely loves Kimiko. So it's such a hard moment to watch. That penultimate episode, him dying and ultimately seeing Kimiko's reaction, and absolute, like, you just sit there with her crying at the very end of the episode, and it's like it's really hard to watch because it's painful. Like, she absolutely loved this man. So now that she can finally speak and tell everything that she can say, it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking, even though the show is kind of setting you up for it anyway. Another thing that I have to say is that this show sets us up for some pretty satisfying demises to characters. So I mean, like, obviously the Deep gets axed, at the very end of this season, and his demise is gruesome, but kind of, you kind of see it coming, 3 or 4 episodes prior to all this, Then you have Father, who gets axed by a ball gag, of all things. Like, his head literally explodes. What it reminds me of? When Father's head explodes, it reminds me of that scene in Multiverse of Madness when, like, you see Black Bolt's mouth being covered, and then he gets shocked, and his head just goes, and he, like, dies. Kind of reminds me of that, except this one was way more gruesome. Father's death was way more gruesome than I could possibly think of. Now, I'm not going to say that the next couple people, like, that their deaths was anything satisfying, but seeing some actors pop up here, you have Khalil Nanjiani popping up here, you have Seth Rogen popping up here, a couple of actors just popping up on the show as themselves and talking as themselves, and just completely, like, exploding in an episode. Like, I feel like even Seth Rogen, being a producer on this show, he was like, yeah, whatever. Like, he just found it satisfying enough to actually do that part of the scene. Even though he does show up, I think a season or 2 ago, he shows up in a very weird way on the show. But I feel like now, like, having his demise happen this way was kind of like, okay, now I understand what people were doing when they were online promoting that Seth Rogen has died in the Boys universe. So that was funny and satisfying at the same time. So I got to give him props for that as well, for making a satisfying death, even though it's kind of sad because, like, there's no Seth Rogen now in the Boys universe. So there you go. Now, obviously, I'm just, like, skimming through my mind here, just giving you guys a few examples of some satisfying death moments of the show, because you don't really associate satisfying with death other than the Boys itself. So I feel like there's that. But obviously, there are some shocking deaths as well on this show that I did not expect, like Black Noir getting killed by the Deep. That was completely out of it. I mean, I had I did not expect Black Noir to die on this show the way he did. Another person who dies on the show, literally on the first episode, is A-Train. And I feel like there's a nice callback to the original, to the first episode, where he in this episode, he kind of avoids a woman when she's running away to sort of show that he knows where he's going, and sort of like trying to protect and trying to, like, avoid himself. And at the same time, the same way that he is trying to avoid, running into this woman, he ultimately saves Hughie. Which to him was like, okay, like, it's for the first time ever. Like, he said it in this episode. He's like, after what I just did, that is the best feeling I've had ever since I joined the Seven. Like, that is like, if that doesn't speak louder than words, I don't know what does. Because that was very clear. Like, this is something that he deeply, deeply wanted to be. He wanted to be a hero for other people. So seeing him die ultimately at the hands of Homelander was like really, like it was shocking to me because I didn't expect Homelander to be the one to kill him. Or ultimately, I didn't even expect him to be killed either way. So that was definitely something that I was not expecting. And on the same note, my goodness, Firecracker. Firecracker, we see her literally like shed her skin this season. Like ultimately we are seeing part of her kind of melt away and you're starting to see the cracks. Like she can't support a man that thinks of himself so highly other than who she prays to. So I definitely see a very interesting dynamic playing within her this season, which we don't see the last 2 seasons that she's in the show. So seeing that play out the way it did, and seeing her shifting and changing and becoming this person who ultimately can't support Homelander and everything he does was very interesting. And ultimately her demise is even more shocking because it's so quick that you don't expect it. You wouldn't expect it to be that way, but he ultimately kills her with an eagle. Like he has a golden eagle statue and he shoves her head into it. So it's like the imagery there and the message there is very clear. So it's such an interesting conversational moment on the show that I think for the next year or 2 or maybe even more, we're definitely going to go back and talk about this moment in pop culture with these characters. So yeah, really shocked me there. But we have to obviously leave the most satisfying death of the season for last, and that's obviously Homelander. Homelander has been a pain in the butt this entire time. He had every opportunity to kill Butcher, and he didn't. He wanted Butcher to suffer without ever killing him. And I feel like he toyed with him until Kimiko essentially eliminates his powers and he becomes like this just regular dude. And in that moment, that's when you see the fragile man he is. And I feel like every single episode this season, you're just seeing like the insides of Homelander just crumbling and and like you can see it within him that like he doesn't want to feel this anymore. He's just angry and filled with rage and just like feels broken on the inside. So ultimately the final nail in the coffin in this case was ultimately his power's been taken away from him, and he's just this fragile kind of like whimpering being. It kind of reminds me of like Voldemort. Like when you see Voldemort at the very end of Harry Potter, and he's just like this little like crumpled up kind of shrivelly little thing compared to like this imposing thing. Now he's like this shriveled up thing. It's the same dynamic here. You strip away his powers and you're just left with like an ass of a person. So that's ultimately what happens. And obviously the very satisfying punch and like punching the crap out of Homelander and ultimately shoving that tire iron, that crowbar actually through Homelander's head was like, okay, now we're not messing around anymore. Like this guy cannot come back ever again. Like no more, please don't. So I feel like that was probably the most satisfying like ending to this character whatsoever, and that was satisfying. I will say that was satisfying to just see him just be eliminated for good. And I love seeing the characters this season ultimately in the end have their happy ending. Seeing Annie, become a mom now because she's pregnant, and she still has her powers, meaning she can still do good while she's pregnant. Seeing Hughie reopen sort of like the whole, tech store they has, go back to a normal life. I feel like him going back to his normal life was a very interesting choice. And I feel like ultimately that's all he wanted to do. Like he never wanted to, make millions or have like this super huge life. He was just an average guy trying to, live a normal life. And I feel like Annie and him are building this sort of this sort of new life together, which ultimately I feel like we're gonna go back to in a future, spin-off season of this show, because we know spin-offs are coming. Trust me. But I feel like seeing those two have a lovely dynamic. Seeing Kimiko in France was a very interesting choice. Obviously, seeing Mother's Milk finally getting married to his wife and finally having like this family, and seeing Ryan there. I don't know if Mother's Milk adopted Ryan, but Ryan was there at the wedding, so that's all I'm gonna say. By the way, Ryan kind of deciding in the end to kind of move on from this whole story was very interesting. And ultimately, I feel like we're going to have a story about Ryan. Ultimately, I feel like maybe in a year or two, maybe 3 years, we're going to see Ryan's story develop. We're probably going to go into an in-depth analysis of Ryan and him trying to become a better hero and kind of represent a better world. Imagine like a series where we just have Ryan, trying to navigate the world and become the greatest possible hero that he can be. Almost, dare I say it, like a combination between Spider-Man and Superman. That would be so satisfying if we got that, but then again, that is just my idea. And obviously, we all knew that at the very end, Billy was gonna die. We all knew that Billy Butcher was gonna die one way or another. We thought it was gonna be in a fight with Homelander, but ultimately, it was at the hands of Hughie. And I feel like in a way, Billy wanted to kind of like off himself. I don't want to use the word here because I don't want to have problems with YouTube, but if you know what I'm talking about, he wanted to off himself in some sort of way. So in that specific scenario, I feel like Hughie was the only person that could possibly do this for him. And I don't even know if in the end that trigger that he had anything there. Like, I feel like it was all bogus in some sort of way. I honestly don't think that he was gonna do what he said he was gonna do, but in the end, he does die at the hand of Hughie, and I feel like Hughie would be the only person to do it. So, as satisfying as this season was, and getting the cameos from actors and all of that, and having these in-depth moments where we see cracks in each individual character's like moral compass, as much as we get all of that, there's definitely some big problems with this final season. I'm going to talk about the big elephant in the room, right? Because at the very end of season 2 of Gen V, at the very end of Gen Z season 2, we get like this whole, thing where A-Train shows up and he's about to like join together with Marie Moreau, and then like these all the Gen V cast is like together and they're gonna fight off Homelander. Like, Marie is the weapon that's gonna destroy Homelander. That is what the premise was of season 1 and 2, right? I'm right? Like, that's what we have been seeing, is that she was being set up to be the weapon to take down Homelander. That's what we know. That's what we had all seen. We all saw that. We all know of that story. They did nothing with Marie this season. Nothing. This infuriated me. I was pissed. That penultimate episode where we see her in the beginning of the episode and she shows up and I was like, all right, let's go. I wish she would have gone in sooner. You know, when we heard like almost a year ago that Marie was going to play an essential role, like Marie was going to play a very important role in season 5 of The Boys. She was nowhere to be found this season, and that pissed me off a lot. As much as I had these great moments, that was one thing that just did not sit well with me. And then obviously, come to find out that Gen V has been canceled, which I think was the worst freaking idea that they could have come up with. That is the worst possible idea. Unless you have something to put in that show's place, that was a horrible freaking idea. These characters were great. These characters were gonna lead on to the next big thing. I mean, heck, I want to see all these, characters have their lives, live out moments of their lives in a normal university or normal campus, or go live a different life somewhere else. I want more from these characters. I want to see more of these characters, and ultimately canceling the show just completely destroyed my want to see it. So I feel like all of that, coupled with the fact that they did not use Marie Moreau this season or any of the other cast. I mean, they make little cameos on the last episode, and we kind of get the idea that Annie is like passing the torch over to Marie, and Marie is the next kind of hero that we're gonna follow. Sure, what's the plan, guys? Like, give us a plan. Like tell us what we need to know that is missing, and that is something that was not told to us. So ultimately, we are in the gray here, and that's also something that I feel like this show could have tweaked a little bit. And this whole aspect of Marie not being on the show, I feel like there are moments on the show that you could have kept the 1 hour length, but you could have cut down on some scenes and given some space to show up Marie on this show. Even if it were like, if she was like maybe like 10% of this episode. If she was like 10% of the episode, I'd be fine with that. If Marie was like 10% of the episode, I'd be okay with that. If she was 15% of the episode, I'd be okay with that. But give us something. Give us something in between those moments that we would have dragged on, because I feel like there are some moments in each episode that you could have tightened. You could have adjusted the pacing of certain points of this show in order to fit a little bit of Marie in every episode. You don't have to make her show up the entire episode. Just give a little section of each episode to Marie and the rest of the Gen V cast. At least give them that. But don't leave us hanging the way you did. So I feel like that would be the second thing, is that the pacing of each episode could have been a little bit tighter, so you could have filled in with something that was Gen V related. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. So I feel like that is another thing that irked me. So apart from all these two little things that kind of were big for me, at least, I feel like diminished a lot of the story. Like you led us on to thinking that we were going to get Marie Moreau this season, and we only got a little bit of her, and I feel like that was like completely disrespectful to people who are watching the show and were expecting a bigger role. It kind of sucked. For me, it just kind of sucked. So I feel like that diminished a little bit of this show for me, this season at least. But I think overall, if we were to like kind of put that kind of thought on the back of our minds, I think it was a solid season. I think the season was pretty solid. I mean, it gave us really great moments. The cast had, it's time to give closure to certain moments, give us explanation as to for example, Mother's Milk, giving us a little bit more backstory as to who Mother's Milk was, giving us, a little bit more closure in the whole Soldier Boy story, and ultimately setting us up for what is going to be the next spin-off of The Boys, being Vought Rising. I feel like Vought Rising is going to be very interesting. That is going to be a show that feels almost like if you took Captain America, the First Avenger, and you made it into a series. I feel like that's what we're going for. And if that's the case, dude, this is going to be a great show. It's going to be a great show. It's going to feel like, a classic show back in the day with like these characters finally getting their powers. Obviously Soldier Boy, we already know that he's, inspired by, Captain America. I mean, Captain America came way before Soldier Boy, but then obviously that character, Soldier Boy himself, is kind of like, how can I say this in a polite way? He's a meaner version of Captain America. I feel like that's the best way to put it. But he is basically a Captain America that has Deadpool's vocabulary. Let's put it like that. That's the best way to put it. So I think that is going to be interesting. Vought Rising is going to be very interesting. And hopefully that will probably shift us into maybe setting us up for whatever is going to come later with the cast of Gen V. Because fingers crossed, I hope we get something great with them in the near future. And all in all, I think season 5 of The Boys did a great job. I think it gave us the moments that we wanted to. It gave us closure. It gave us incredible commentary on certain events that have happened in the world. Things that have been super current. I mean, to the point where like everything beat for beat almost like was bound to happen in real life, and it did in a very weird way. Obviously, not the superhero portion, but sort of the certain aspects that you see on the show end up happening in real life almost simultaneously, which was kind of wild considering that this was written like 2 years ago. So I'm very interested in seeing the future of the Boys universe, and ultimately if it's going to expand to maybe even theatrical releases, because that would be very fun to see in a theater. And I know that this finale was actually, made to be shown in theaters, and I know a lot of people went to the theater to see the finale. So, hey, who knows? Maybe we're this close to getting a boys-based movie, I should say, not series, but movie in theaters. So, fingers crossed. But like I say in all of my videos, these are my opinions, my thoughts, the things that go on in my head as I am making these videos for you. And like in every video, I want to ask you, what do you guys think? Did you guys like Boys Season 5? Did you not like The Boys Season 5? Were there elements that felt icky? Are you like me and you thought that maybe Marie should have had a bigger role this season, and by extension, the rest of the Gen V cast? I want to know more. I want to know from you what you guys think down in the comments below, because I want to have this discussion with you. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants took place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savants got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.